Okay, so apparently the magic machine says that I'm live, so apparently I am live. Got some new digs going on, some old digs. I'm back in my original residence where you'd see me, but a new wing, if you will. Um, and people have been reaching out to me and saying, these are truly cuckoo banana times. We thought there were cuckoo banana times before, but now these are truly cuckoo banana times. And more than one person reached out to me and said, we could use you again in these cuckoo banana times. Plan D, first in the live chat. Congratulations to Plan D. Um, so I said, well, I'll do my best to oblige, but I can do my best to oblige, but only so far as uh, I'll come back and speak, but hopefully to be a boon and a benefit, but only so far. Tim Frey, second in the live chat, silver medal onto you. Only so far as I can speak upon these times, but only so far as Jonah side, uh, bronze, onto thee. Only so far as speaking doesn't go against any promises I've made to myself or to others to not go against vows that I've made to not do things that I don't think no longer serve me. Once upon a time when many people have joined me along this journey, I started YouTube 10 years ago, or 2015, 11 years ago. And at certain points, we thought that this was, the sky was the limit. We're going to be bigger than U.S. Steel. So, aspirations that, this YouTube bonanza. Elaine joining us. As we say hello to Elaine, we say hello to Mario Heats. Mario Heats. Welcome all to the live chat. That the sky was the limit, and this beautiful YouTube festivities were going to take me away from the humdrum workaday world, and I would have say whatever I want. That was the roadmap to fame and fortune, and risks be damned, and say what thou wilt and do what thou want, because be outrageous as you want, because who cares, damn the torpedoes and let the full steam ahead. But hey, I'm happy. The viewers that remain are the loyal viewers. And I'm happy with y'all, and I'm satisfied. Exactly. Um, but truth be known, I've had to go back to the real world. And as such, I've learned that I have to be circumspect um, and, cautious. And I live a professional life, and as such, and I also have to be sensitive to people's feelings. I deal with also, people in the world, so I have my personal convictions and I stay true to my personal convictions, but it no longer serves me to just, speak extemporaneously online, saying things that can be clipped, taken out of context, heard by strangers, heard by friends and or acquaintances or whoever, and misunderstood or out of context. And people are sensitive about these things, politics, world affairs, world events. So I will speak, but I will speak um, perchance a little bit more. Affluent for you. Long time no see. No, he says with an exclamation point. It has to be what it is. It has to be what it is. I respect the feelings of people, and I'll accept the people's honest expressions. Don't let them silence you. I won't be silenced. I mean, what it is that I will express myself. I've learned that it's not that I'll be silenced, it's that I'll be circumspect with what I have to, with what I say online. And, people should also be aware of the fact that, look, speaking of the changes in the world, you know, there's many people that we started off with on YouTube or in social media world. Many of the content creators that I once counted as my peers um, are no longer on YouTube. Many have selected to leave YouTube and stop content creation. Some have stopped content creation and removed all of their content from YouTube. Um, and there are reasons that people have chosen to do that. Um, Social media censorship has taken strange, weird directions. We know that from reporting that came out of the New York Times that I think it was the Department of Homeland Security requested that Google turn over the identity of people that were speaking ill of ICE. And whereas Anthropic came forward and said, look, we were contacted by the US military and they requested to use our AI software, our AI platform, to use for the Department of Homeland Security, use with ICE or to use in certain military operations. And we refused. Anthropic came forward and said, we were contacted by the US government. They requested to use our platform, and we said no. To the best of my understanding, it wasn't ABC XYZ Corporation, Google's parent corporation, or Google themselves or YouTube themselves that came forward and said, look, we've been contacted by the Department of Homeland Security or the Department of Justice, and we flatly said no. It was reporters who came out and said, we've been made aware of the fact. This is my understanding of the story, and I could be incorrect or wrong about some of that. And that's the thing I want to say too, is that, I've learned that there's a lot of noise out there. Um, and you've seen a lot less of me on YouTube and social media because I'm participating a lot less in YouTube and social media because I'm actively trying to reduce the amount of noise in my system. Whereas I used to see a lot of the knuckleheads that you're accustomed, or if you've watched me over the last 10 years, you've seen me and, my kind of well-earned reputation of talking about, wackadoos on YouTube and such. It used to be the point that I'd see these people and I would feel the need or the obligation to tune into a lot of these people. Now I purposely don't, because at 50 years old, I'm aware of the fact that, I don't have an infinite amount of time on planet Earth. So I'm going to spend my time listening to people that I think have value. You know, if I'm going to listen to something that is pure nuttiness, I'm going to listen to a record by the Dickies. You know what I mean? I'm going to read an Archie comic. I'm going to read something that's purely entertainment. I'm not going to spend time listening to another Carrie Cassidy interview. I'm not going to watch another 3 hours of David Wilcock. Why would I do that? Right? There's just no more time for that. If other people want to do that, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. I'm not here to preach at anybody or say, if you do that, you're wasting your time and you're wasting your life and you better stop doing that. I'm not here to do that. you know? And as far as, covering, basically what happened is that someone, contacted me and said, are you going to talk about this situation with, this, if World War III is about to break out? And, you know, I said is that, I'm willing to come out here and talk about things, but, look, there's a world full of geopolitical experts, and many of them are on YouTube. There are military experts, many of them on YouTube. And I realized that, a lot of the things when I talk about it, there's a lot of noise out here. It's like, if you want to know about things, it's what's important is the who, what, where, when, and how of the story. And you used to read newspapers, you used to read magazines, and that's what you were trying to get. Even with what used to be the evening news, it was the who, what, where, when, and how of the story. That was the journalist integrity. That's what you were trying to report on. That's what you were trying to get through and communicate. That was the news. And now the news, then you got to cable broadcast, the 24-hour news cycle with cable TV and CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and all that stuff. And it was just then pundits, and then the news event happens, but then it's 24 hours of people talking about the news. And then it's just news. It's just people talking about the thing. And it's often people talking about the thing who have no idea what they're talking about. Everybody knows the definition of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Everybody knows the term, self-obsessed narcissistic abuser, but nobody understands the term irony, right? So it's just, I tell people, like, you don't need to hear me I don't need to be another voice of noise just repeating secondhand information. Because that's all it is generally when you listen to a guy like me. Look, I'm listening to the same news that you're listening to. I have no insiders. Yes, I'm a lawyer, so you want to hear me talk about the constitutional ramifications of the president's actions in regards to the War Powers Act? I'm a personal injury attorney that is now branching out into the field of mediation. I'm not a constitutional law expert. People would contact me and go, "Why don't you get into this law tube thing?" I go, "Because it's bunko. It's the same thing. It's like, lawyers are specialists. You know what I mean? I know the field of law that I know, and there's no reason to talk about that on YouTube because it's not a sexy type of law. It just really isn't." So if I talk about anything with what's going on in the world today, I'll talk to people about what I think has the most value, which is telling you how I deal with the world today and how I deal with the world of uncertainty. And how do I, chill with the world of uncertainty and how I deal with it and how I deal with trying to not get upset and not freak out about it. And it's not easy. But what I try to do is, I tune in for as much of the news as I can handle. And Tom, effluent for you, listen, brother, if you got something to say it. But if you're just gonna come here and, kind of hassle me, man, I don't know what to help you with, you know what I mean? I'm not setting down any sword. I have no sword to set down. Yeah, that's a fine one. It's nothing, brother. But you know what I mean? We go back a long way, but it is what it is, bro. Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Life is tough enough. And and we could be misunderstood. It's just what I mean. It's a lot of signal to noise out here. I guess that's the theme. And it's nothing personal. I don't begrudge you, for getting involved or talking. You know what I mean? It's all gravy. It's all good. And sorry if that sounded like a call out or like I was like giving you beef. This is not my intention. But so it's like I get, Roxy Music had this song, "Love is a drug." Love is the drug that I'm da 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 whatever. If we think of love as the opposite of hate or hate is the opposite of love, I don't know if that's true or not, but if love is a drug, then so is hate and so is anger. And you can get addicted to drugs, right? Goes without saying. So if love is a drug that you can get addicted to, I think hate and anger is a drug you can get addicted to too. So, and I think that I know that because I understood how crazy I got about um, the people that would piss me off, or that certainly got me into a lot of trouble with the street hassles that I got into on YouTube. I think certainly I gotta get up because like my feet fall asleep when I sit on the floor. Um, with people, online. So I'm looking for less stress and less anger. But what you gotta be wary of, I think, online is I think I got contacted by people that were telling me that they were like freaked out about the present situation. Is that you want to stay informed and you want to get the news of the day to know what's going on because you got to know what's going on and you want to stay informed but you want to stay informed enough, right? So tune in, get the news, but then get out. If the news of the day is driving you crazy, then just make sure you get the update. And once you get to the point where you realize that it's just another person telling you the same information over and over again, you don't need to know that. If you're in Germany or if you're in the United States of America, you don't really need to know about every single piece of ordinance that's going, you know, over Tel Aviv or blowing up over Tehran. You probably really don't. You need to know if there's like actionable news, if there's an alert that's saying, if you're in Berlin, watch out. There's a warning in Berlin, or there's, fire on, Main Street and this place, or if you don't have your papers, you need to know where ICE is. You do. You need to know some things, but you don't need to know everything all the time, especially if it's driving you crazy or making you go nuts. You got to use the times that are going on and the stressful times that you're living in today. You got to figure out how to deal with those times because times can get better. Mari says, unless you have to do it for a living. If you have to do it for a living, that's one thing. But there's a lot of people that probably don't. But uh, if it's driving you crazy, learn to turn it off, and don't listen to stuff that drives you bonkers. Like that's the thing with like talking about the knuckleheads that I used to watch all the time. If you're watching stuff that is making you grind your teeth, if you're watching stuff, if tuning into news about this particular political leader or that particular political leader is making you go freak out, there's no point because the dude will be impeached when the dude is impeached. And that'll happen when it happens. Until it happens, he's just going to keep on doing what he's doing. And that's the way it is. Right? It's like if you get dosed at a party, like, you know what I mean? If you go to like a party and like all of a sudden you start realizing like some jackass has decided irresponsibly to put something in the punch, right? what are you going to do? You try and assess the situation. You try and, you can freak out. You can line everybody up. Be like, who's down with this? Who's not down with this? Look at the people who are down with it and say, are you the one who dosed us? Or who the fuck did this? Who thinks this is a good idea? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? You could, turn it into a real bad scene. It's guarantee everyone a bad trip. Or you could, make an assessment, be like, okay, who just got signed up for their first experience, who's not ready for their first experience, you know what I mean? And try and do your best to be there for people and go with the flow, right? You didn't sign up for it. You didn't do anything to make it happen, but it's happening, right? You didn't vote for it, but somebody did. And I was saying before, like, if you think about and reflect upon the things that people go through, like, I'm here in America, right? And there are people in America that have dealt with tough ass shit, right? And there are people around the world who have dealt with globally, like, been in wars, been bombed, and having ordnance dropped on their head, seen their wives and children killed in front of them by foreign powers, dropping ordnance and shit on their head, and been bombed out and killed, and had invaders or people invade them, or been involved in ethnic cleansing, genocide, right? There's stuff that we freak out about that is nothing compared to what other people have done. So it's like, if you can't hack what we're dealing with, well, get ready, because, you could wait, you don't know what's coming next. So you better figure out a way to take this opportunity to learn how to deal with this. And I remind myself, like, not to beat myself up when I find myself in times of stress and strain and despair and breaking down. And it happens often because I'm a human being. I say to myself, don't hate on yourself for freaking out. But remember, like, you got to figure out how to handle. You got to find the positivity within. You got to find it. You got to figure it out. You got to crunch and come up. Or else you're really not going to be able to handle it when the doctor comes into the room and says, or the car comes out of left field and crashes into you, or the bombs start falling, or stuff really goes down and you really have to hustle and think in the moment and deal with things that you've never had to deal with before. Change comes. So I do breathing exercises. I chant because it's a form of meditation that is easy to do. And I read spiritual texts not because I think that everything that is in spiritual texts are 100% accurate and true, but because I know that the spiritual texts of the world contain a lot of the information that people have discovered and thought to record as being the words of wisdom and advice that can get people through the trials and troubles and struggles that occur naturally on planet Earth to human beings who are cognizant and aware and conscious of their mortality and the fears and anxieties of dealing with this shit. Because this shit is this shit. Call it a king, call it a president, Call them Mongols, call them communists, call them terrorists, call them Muslims, call them this, call them that, call them fundamentalists, freak out, call them whatever. Don't worry, I'm not gonna stop streaming. You know what I mean? That's if anything, this is the thing. Like you can reach out to me. People know my email. You tell me. People in the description box below underneath my videos. People know the fastest way to get through to me is leave a comment underneath one of my videos. I respond to my comments. Plan D knows that. Yeah. And friends to return to. X10 says, and friends to return to. If anything, one of the things that I've learned through 2025, which you see less of me, you've seen less of me in 2025 and less of me in 2026. Why? Because I think a lot of people, while you see a lot of less of the content creators you may have seen before, is because what a lot of people are realizing is the internet promise that we were sold didn't turn out to be accurate. When I was coming up and the internet was coming up, I remember the first people that I knew about being online were literally when I was in high school. It was like there were 2 or 3 people that I knew that were going online with BBSs and shit. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, BB? You know what I mean? Going online. What the hell are you talking about? By the time I was in college, they were like giving us email addresses. We were like, what? What the fuck's it to do with an email address? I remember 95, like being like anti-internet, being like, man, whatever. Then I remember getting like an Apple II or something that an old Apple II that my brother had, and using that to go on like America Online or Prodigy or some shit. You know what I mean? Heart goes out to you, Plan D. Living a big struggle right now. Hey, a lot of people are going through it collectively. You need real world connections. There you go. I appreciate that, X10s. And the reason why I'm coming out is because people reached out to me and said, hey, buddy, there were tough times before that we thought were tough, but we had you, and now the times are really, really tough. We could use you again. So I said, hey, I'll try. I'll come out and I'll say, I don't know what to say. I can't talk like I used to talk. I'm not going to do the old things I used to do. I'm not going to sing and dance like a singing, dancing monkey, but I'll come out, I'll stream. I'll say, hey, what's up? I'll give you the advice that I think is the best advice I could give, which is it doesn't make sense for me to talk about the nitty gritty of geopolitics because I'm not a political scientist. I don't really think that it's my area of expertise. I think there's better places for you to go to get that stuff. But I will tell you, hey, I'm here, I still care about you. You should still care about each other. But the internet thing is, we should go back to the real world. You know what I mean? Not that it's easy. It ain't easy, baby. But you really got to do it because the people you meet online, it's not necessarily, hey, listen, this is the only help I can give, right? Really, baby. The only thing I could do is to tell you is that the sincerity of caring about other human beings is alive and well in me, and it's alive and well in a lot of people. But you got to make those real world connections. Because if the power goes out, the internet friends are not available to you. And internet friends can be real friends. They can be real friends, but they can't help you move the sofa. And they can't hug you. And sometimes you need a hug, and sometimes you need a friend to move the fucking sofa. And sometimes you need a buddy, even just one buddy, to show up with you to the old man's funeral. You know what I'm saying, kid? And that's not to besmirch anyone out there who doesn't have real world connections and real world friends. It's not to look down on anybody. It's not to make anyone feel small. But I'm telling you, do what's hard. Because a lot of this stuff, the internet stuff, it becomes like a placebo or it becomes like an easy out, right? It becomes the easy thing to settle for. It's like a real world connection, and therefore you get it, so you feel like you got it. But I urge you, because the point of the internet was not that we would get together and sell digital things to each other digitally. It was so that we were going to sell our real world things to other people around the world. We were going to promote our bands, that we're going to play real live gigs in real world spaces, but we're just going to promote them online. Not that we were going to sell digital music digitally to digital people around everywhere. So you have bands that they may sell 1,000 digital copies, or they may have a million and one plays on YouTube, but they can't fill any particular small club in any particular town because they don't have any particular number of fans in any particular city. That's the rub. You have all these little music scenes that are huge online, but there's no coalition. There's no solid space. There's no festival that can happen in any physical location, because no, it doesn't exist in any space, in any real physical space. It's not a local scene. And I still believe that what I've experienced in 2025 and moving into 2026 is that we've done an experiment with digital life and internet life, and that experiment may have run its course, and it may be time to go back to the real world. So as I come to you, and if I sound like a curmudgeon or an old man, again, I'll do my best. It's not to sound like, yeah, I'm doing it on my phone. I am doing it on my phone. It's not to sound like an old man or a curmudgeon, and I apologize if that's the way I come off. It's because I'm I I can only be authentic. I can only tell the truth. And the truth is, you haven't seen me online because my observations are is that online is not the place to be. The place to be is in the real space, in the real world. Which is not to say that I'm leaving online or I'm not going to stream anymore, because I do want to be present for the people that feel as though there's some value in me being present, and to be here for the people that feel as though there's some value in me being here. But it is to urge you to say that if I have any gnosis or knowledge to share, it's that if you're freaking out about what's going on, it's that I have found some wisdom about how not to freak out about some of those things. And the wisdom is to know that I met Keats in real life too. There you go. Um, you can cure some of this stuff that may be driving you crazy by stopping some things, identifying some of the things that may be driving you crazy, which is this, is that realize that the events around the world that you may have convinced yourself that you need to stay tuned into and aware of for some reason, you really don't need to. You don't need to stay tuned in 24 hours a day into every global struggle that's happening around the world. It's not your job. It may be your job if you're like in the, some high ranking military official, or you're a news reporter. I don't know if what I said doesn't apply to you, I apologize. But if you're just John or Jane or someone else Q citizen, really, you have permission. You do not need to, you know, tune into the local broadcast in your neighborhood to find out if there's any news alerts that you need to be aware of for your own personal safety. And beyond that, I mean, you want to be, generally aware, but, about what's going on in the world today to be an informed, citizen. But beyond that, you really, you know what I mean? Guess what? Politicians are idiots and they lie. The current president of the United States is, um, quite possibly not in his right mind and of ill health and has a loose understanding of the concept of the Constitution and is really not that savvy and is, etc. You know what I mean? That's not going to change. Like every day, you don't need to be aware of the latest turn of. You really don't. I swear to you, you really don't. You know what I mean? It's like, and if alien disclosure happens, guess what? You'll find out. And if there's World War III and the bomb, guess what? And here's the dirty little secret: if there's a global thermonuclear war, guess what? You'll find out. And guess what? Whether you find out about it beforehand or after the fact, it'll be too late. And guess what? Whenever you find out about it, okay, if your last thoughts are, that jerk, he caused it, I can't believe he robbed me of this life, or I can't believe he caused these people to, I think you'll have been wasting your last thoughts. I think you'll probably want to use those last thoughts to, get it, together, whether it's, that's life, or, there you go, or, live your life. Live your life for you and for the people around you. And, we're not here for a long time, so we might as well be here for, figure it out time, learn, love, life, live it, love it. Don't waste your time. Really, live with intention. That's really what I urge you to do. Do you know what I mean? Live with purpose. If you're fucking up your life in some way, stop fucking it up. If there's something that you can identify that you're doing that is driving yourself crazy, if there's something that you're tuning into all the time obsessively, but every time you do, it's driving you bananas, stop doing it. Humans obsessively pick scabs. We do. We're very apt to pay more attention to what annoys us than to what brings us joy. Why do we do that? I don't know. But many of us do and act in that way. We're silly billies. I don't know why we do it, but we do. But we can stop. We can stop eating empty calories. We can stop eating junk food. It's hard work, but we can train ourselves to start eating nutritious foods. We can wean ourselves off sodas and sugary drinks, not that I'm the best guy to do that, and start drinking more water. And I'm not judging anybody. I'm telling you, I'm a work in progress, you're a work in progress. But if life is driving you bananas, trust me, there are things that you can do to help yourself stop going bananas. And I'm telling you, I assure you that a ton of it has to do with the information that you're taking in. Okay? So I love you, I love you, I love you. We love you a long time. If nobody told you they loved you today, somebody just did that guy CW Chanter. I don't know if I got cards around me. I don't know if I got anything around me. I'll have to pick. The card of the day is Millhouse. As what is this guy? He's Fallout Boy, right? G. Willikers, Fallout Boy. There you go. That's one to grow on. I'm telling you. Who could be sad when there's Fallout Boy? I'm telling you. He's a good band, but it's a better Millhouse. He's a human boy with feelings, just like you. So I'm telling you, folks, relax, stay chill. Don't let the bastards get you down. We're going to get through this together, okay? Breathe in, breathe out. Stay balanced, stay hydrated, drink water, okay? And we're going to make it through. Love will save the day, okay? Why did I have the bowl, Bart? Why did I have the bowl? There you go. I love you. Till next time, folks. Drink. How did he know? Mario Heat. How did he know? It was zero sugar, cherry cream float soda. Love you. Peace be upon you. I'll see you soon. I'll be back soon. Like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends. It was the Fallout Boy.